So one thing that we are going to learn how to talk about in this chapter is how to use the verb estar. Now you may remember that when we learned ser, we learned that ser meant to be. And now we learned estar whenever we learned irregular yo verbs, and we learned that estar also meant to be. But there are three ways that we would use estar that we would definitely not use for ser. For more information, you can look in your textbook on page 134. Now, we would use estar for three specific situations. We would use estar when we were using prepositions, if we were using emotions or physical conditions, or if we are talking about present action. So how do each of those work? Now, each of these prepositions, we can use estar with. We could use it for entre, which means between, al lado de, which means next to, cerca de, close to, lejos de, far away from, debajo de, under, encima de, sobre o en, which means on, delante, which means in front of, detrás de, which means behind, adentro de, which means inside, afuera de, which means outside, con, which means with, or sin, which means without. For example, if I wanted to say that you are next to the theater, I would say, estás al lado del teatro. See, you are next to the theater. Or if I wanted to say that your friend Carmen is between the park and the cafe so that you might be able to find her, I would also use estar with prepositions. For example, Carmen está entre el parque y el café, so that you might be able to find her. I would also use estar when I was talking about emotions or physical conditions. Let's say I wanted to say I was bored, or I was tired, or I was worried, or I was happy. Those are times when I would use estar, and I would use emotions or physical conditions. For example, contento meaning content, feliz meaning happy, aburrido meaning bored, enojado meaning angry, furioso also meaning angry, emocionado to be excited, triste to be sad, asustado to be surprised, or avergonzado to be embarrassed, ordenado to be orderly, desordenado to be disorderly, preocupado to be worried, limpio to be clean, sucio to be dirty, enfermo to be sick, or cansado to be tired. For example, if I wanted to say that Elena and Javier are happy or they are content at this moment, then I could say Elena y Javier están contentos. But notice that because it's mixed gender, I've had to use an O and an S indicating that they are a mixed gender group, and S meaning that there is a group of them and they are not just one person. If I wanted to say I am happy and I'm a female, right, then I would want to indicate that by saying estoy contenta. If I'm talking about someone who is angry and that person is a male, then I would want to say he is enojado because he's just one person and he is a male. If I wanted to indicate that a group of females are very worried, then I would want to say están preocupadas because they are a group of women and they are worried. So each of these will change based on the gender and the grouping of people that we're talking about. The last way that I could use estar is with actions. So, for example, if I'm using estar with actions, I'm going to conjugate the verb estar, and then whatever verb it is that is doing the action, the end of it will change into either ando, if it's an AR verb, or yendo, if it's an ER or an IR verb. This is actually the form of verb that we use the most frequently in English. For example, we wouldn't say in English, I talk, we say, I am talking. Or we wouldn't say, I do, we would say, I am doing. Whereas in Spanish, most often, you will use the present tense to indicate habitual action. Yo hablo, yo bailo, indicating it's not something that I do sometimes, it's something that I do a lot of the time. In Spanish, though, if you want to indicate that you are presently doing an action, meaning it is the thing that you are doing in this particular moment, then you would use estar with actions. Another manner of talking about this verb is saying the present progressive. So you would, if you wanted to say, I am studying, then you would say, estoy estudiando. Estoy meaning I am, estudiando meaning studying. So this ando becomes the ing in English. If you wanted to say, you are working, then I would say, tú estás trabajando, right? I've taken off the AR and added an ando to indicate that the ing, and you are. If I wanted to say, she is eating, then I need to say, ella está comiendo. I've taken off the ER and put on the ing, and then I put she is, right? Nosotros estamos abriendo. We are opening, right? I need an ing to indicate the opening, and we are. Nosotros estamos. Ellos están bailando, meaning they are dancing. I have ando to indicate the ing of dancing, and they are. Ellos están. Now, similar to how in English you wouldn't just say working, doing, or going, in Spanish you would also not just use these verbs as they are. If I just had estudiando and I had nothing else, it would not be correct. If I had bailando and nothing else, it would also not be correct, because it would be like saying dancing or working or going, but without any of the rest of it. So similar to in English, where I would have to say I am going or I am doing, in Spanish you would have to do the same. You would have to say estoy haciendo, estoy yendo, estoy durmiendo. You would have to have the estoy or estás. You have to have the estar in front of the verb in order to make it correct. Please read over the information given in your textbook for more information on this subject, and don't forget to take the quiz.